Well, welcome, 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 Aline. I'm so happy to have you here. Thank you for taking the time to share your story and your gifts with us today. Tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. It's absolutely delightful to be here. Thank you.
Oh, welcome.
A little bit about me. I am a channel, I'm a mentor, and I'm a coach. And I love to help highly sensitive people and empaths shine. And it's not a cliche. It sounds like a cliche. I love to help mainly women who have got to a crossroads in their life and they realize that perhaps they've been wearing a mask, that perhaps they have built this persona around how everybody else would like them to be, and something has happened, either an emotional trauma or a physical trauma, and their real self is trying to come out. And it's that kind of chrysalis stage
Mm.
with the caterpillar going into the chrysalis before becoming the butterfly. It's that kind of gooey stage, and it's what I do is I help, I nurture, and I comfort who is that real person. And I help with the peaks and the troughs, and I help with the grief of letting go of the old self. And I guide with channeling also. I have received messages for people, and also we go on beautiful journeys together. So it's a lot of inner work so that can start manifesting on the outside. So that is in a nutshell. I'm also an Akashic channel as well.
There's that.
And yes, and I'm a podcaster. So there we go. There's a short answer for you.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, I'm so excited for your work because you are such a gentle soul, and empaths more than ever need that safe space to become all that we're made to be, and maybe even a little bit of coaxing out of the hermit mode and the perpetual healing to shine and recognize the mask, which I know for me, I didn't recognize the mask for a long time. So what a gift to be able to work with you to have that loving, safe mirror to help us see who we actually are. And I'm excited. At the end, we will share a couple gifts. You have an ebook to share today, as well as your top tips for clients. So stick around to the end. We'll make sure that you receive lots of value today in this session. Tell us more about your story. How did you get involved in what you do now? Recognizing that the community is often trying to step into their purpose. And so that journey of leaving the life you should live and stepping into the life that you were made for. So tell us, how did that get started for you?
Well, so my story, and thank you so much for saying that firstly about how beautiful for
Oh,
people to work with me. Right back at you. Your soul and your energy is gorgeous,
oh,
absolutely gorgeous.
thank you. Thank you.
So you're very, very welcome and very deserving. So in terms of, and actually just going back, that's a really important point. I feel as empaths and as highly sensitive people, where we're used to looking after everybody, it's so important that we embrace a compliment and we say thank you. So that just felt really important to come up and say that for a moment. So for somebody who's listening or watching, that perhaps they needed to hear that.
What is so funny is I now have to reflect back to the dynamic that was happening internally for me. And historically, I would have said, no, you're too kind. The ability to receive that. Notice I had to just say thank you and not to explain it away or justify it or offer you another compliment, right? So there was a conscious process there that I have had to learn to
Yeah.
just receive, just to say thank you. So how beautiful that you felt that and received that and followed your intuition in addressing that. So that is a beautiful gift again for the community, just to be able to see that modeled. So thank you for
Gorgeous. I
that.
love that. And I feel it, it's all about authenticity and being real. So if something comes through really strongly for me, whereas before it was all pushed down and I wouldn't say anything, it's almost like I can't possibly say that. I very much feel into, is that okay to share, rather than I can't possibly say that and moving on. So thank you, saying that back to me as well. So brilliant. I love it. Reciprocity.
Yes, yes, absolutely.
So yes, what one of the ways that I work as well is I am quite butterfly, and I do kind of sometimes it's not necessarily a tangent because there's something there. And I always kind of felt I have to rein myself in. And it's really interesting how, as we start accepting ourselves, because that is absolutely where it starts, we accept who we truly are, not this person that we try to change. So, what happened for me is, I mean, I'm 48 now, so I can't go into the whole story. I'll give you some kind of highlights, if you like, some major moments. So when I was very much younger, I loved performing arts. I loved making different accents and being creative and doing different things in the mirror on my own. And nobody knew that I did this. And so it's quite interesting. I was put into pantomime from the age of 5, all that kind of thing. So when it came to choosing what would be my, my continued studies, I automatically felt that, well, I'll just do drama because it makes sense. And I was told that I wasn't allowed to do it. So that was the first little um, a family member who no judgment, and it's really important that we don't have judgment. It is what it is. I found out many years ago that that person thought I was too sensitive to go into that arena. So that's really interesting.
Mhm.
That comes up. So that was the first one. And then when I got to A levels, I thought, right, okay, now I've done what I was told to do, and I've been the good girl. I can now choose performing arts and theatre studies. Hurrah, here we go. No. So I wasn't allowed to do that. And again, no judgment. This is just explaining what happened. So I was encouraged to do other A levels, and I rebelled, to be perfectly honest. I rebelled. I wasn't feeling comfortable in the subjects that I was doing. I joined the theatre company, which was I was there all the time. All the time. I would, excuse me, I'm doing this by the way, because I have my cat on my lap and her little fur, white fur's going up my nose. So I was very much involved with the theatre company, and it was we had to do extracurricular activities, and for me that was like my main one, and I absolutely loved it. The other subjects started going by the wayside, and I would bunk college. I would get on the 1 o'clock bus home. I would go to a friend's house and um, do other extracurricular activities involving smoking. So what was really interesting was I started pushing my sensitivity down because, and I understand this now, I didn't realize I was numbing myself because I was feeling so much and not being true to myself. And the only way that I could live, if you like, the only way, and I realize this now, I didn't realize this at the time, I was 17, 18 years old. The only way that I could show up was by numbing myself and by kind of doing what all the other kids were doing. So I would be, smoking pot, for want of a better word, with friends. And I remember not hugely enjoying it sometimes, and it was just kind of that's what we did. And then obviously not when I was in the theatre company when we were rehearsing because we put on plays. It was incredible. I absolutely loved it. I wasn't smoking pot there. I was in my element there and listening to them all talking about their classes, what they did in their theatre studies and what they did in their performing arts and this little yearning going on. So that was the kind of the first step. And then the smoking pot, some of my friends went out one night and they were all very, very excited and jubilant. They had taken ecstasy. And that's where that started. So I went from pot to ecstasy. And I didn't expect to be speaking exactly about this, but it's coming up. So
Oh,
I used to be friends with quite a lot of boys because at the time I found it easier to be friends with boys because they said it how it was, and so did I. I just felt more comfortable. It just turned out that way, and so we all started going clubbing together. it wasn't for a huge amount of time. It was long enough. I would go every weekend and I would take ecstasy and I would dance and had the most wonderful time just drinking water and taking ecstasy and dancing. My creativity was trying to come out somewhere. And then I remember I was out one night and it started not being as fun because I am such a sensitive person. Other people would have quite a lot, and I only needed a teeny tiny little bit. And I was, absolutely fine. And then it got to a point where it just wasn't fun anymore. And there was one night I couldn't actually move, and I was just watching people, and I couldn't move, and I couldn't dance. And then a little bit later, there was somebody speaking to me, and I just thought, I don't want to speak to you. And then I thought, well, if I wasn't on anything, would I speak to you? It's like, yes. And then I had the other little message. If that person wasn't on something, would they be speaking to you? And the answer was no. And I had this kind of little realization on my own. And then from that point, whenever we went clubbing, I was like a little recluse. I didn't go out. So I decided to stop. And I understand it's all vibrational going on, all vibrational going on. So when I look back in hindsight, it's like my vibration was up there to start with, and then it started going down and down and down. And then my vibration to match the vibration of the drugs. So even though I thought I was up here, I was right down here. So it was very, very interesting that this happened. And I just got to the point, it's like, I'm not enjoying this. This isn't me. And then this was all sort of going on throughout college as well. So with the studying and with this and then that, and a family member was called in because I wasn't going to my lessons. The teacher actually, as well as saying that I wasn't attending, they actually said to the person who had gone in, Aline is really, really good on the stage, really good on the stage. They'd seen me in a couple of things. And that's where my passion was lying. So college happened, and because I was rebelling, I didn't get the same kind of level of grades that I got when I did my previous studies. And I still remember the look on a particular family member's face the day of my 18th birthday when we got our A-level results. I passed,
Mm.
just not up there, which was my capabilities. And because I've been told I was an academic, you see, because it was no, you're not doing drama, you're not doing theatre studies, you're an academic. It was almost like this kind of rebelling of, I'll show you I'm not an academic. Not that I realized that at the time. And then I decided, okay, well, most people go to university, and I decided I wasn't going to go to university because I wouldn't be able to do what I truly wanted to do. So I started working elsewhere. I was going to go on the cruise lines to be a perfume girl. And then I'm actually giving you my life story here. I'll try and cut it down a bit. This is important because it's the addiction part.
Yeah.
But I started partying again when I had these two roles, because there was a girl who joined where I was in one of the jobs. And she said to me, come to Mallorca with me. So we were with a group for a week, everybody speaking German. We arrived in the winter. There were no English there. I had done GCSE German and got an A. I didn't necessarily converse in how we were supposed to get these people into taxis to look at timeshare. This is so funny. I'm speaking about this. So anyway, so after the week, we were invited to go and work for another timeshare group. And this girl said to me, I haven't seen her since. She said, I'll be up next week. Like, okay, see you next week then. I haven't seen her ever again.
Wow.
So I went with all of these people that I didn't know to the other end of the island and started working for another company. However long down the line, they're actually wanted by Interpol and all of this kind of dramatic stuff going on. And there was a girl there who I befriended, and she was kind of the local drug dealer, which I thought was rather glamorous and rather exciting. So I kind of entered into that again. And it was only for the space of a couple of weeks, because the universe did it brilliantly. She had said to me, and this is absolutely classic, if I had been caught, I would probably still be in Spanish jail. So she said to me, I'll speak to everybody and you hold the drugs.
Okay.
I know. So I had a packet of cigarettes with ecstasy tablets in each of the cigarettes. And the idea was she would speak to people. This is when, smoking could still happen in clubs. Well, maybe it does now. I don't know. So I would go and offer somebody a cigarette after she'd spoken to them, and that's how it worked. Yeah, like this happened really like short term. I'm not by any means entered into the big kind of barren drug world or anything. I'm just explaining what happened. So this evening, I had all these trips down my knee-high boots and they fell out. And that was the best thing that could happen. That was the best thing that could happen because I was no longer the secure person to hold on to the drugs or anything. That was gone. That was done. End of. So thank you, universe.
Mm.
So that happened. And I'm talking about this because it's really interesting how our paths can go and then to bring us to a certain point. And I very much believe that all of this had to happen to get me to a certain level. I had to have certain experiences. These were all choices. I could have made the choice to say to my family member, no, I want to study drama. I could have made the choice to my family member to say, no, I want to study theatre studies and performing arts. I didn't because I was scared. And there was an element of, obviously at that age, we're being looked after by our family members. And there was very much the element of being told what to do and being the good girl, because that was how I was accepted and that's how I fit in. And this is the reason I'm explaining about what happened with, the drug situation in Mallorca and all the rest. It was so I could fit in. It was all of this persona building. It was all looking around and kind of feeling into, well, how can I fit in to this group? How can I fit into this group? When all of us empaths, all of us highly sensitive people, we were not born to fit in. We were born to help everybody change as the world is changing in this beautiful, as we go towards the divine, the divine feminine. And I firmly believe that everything I've experienced is so I can help others who might not necessarily be in a situation like that. It's something similar that's not aligning with who they are, and taking a really good honest look with compassion, with kindness, because it's not like, work with Aline because she was a beaming light, she was born and she glided through life. No.
None of us.
No. None of us have. So it's really important, I feel, to be authentic and real. And so what happened, I then encountered alcohol, and I'd never really been interested in alcohol. So then alcohol became my addiction. And that was in Mallorca, and it was very much trying to keep up with everybody else and be that during the winter there wasn't much work, and so we would party. And that's what happened. I got addicted to alcohol. And I remember looking at myself about 6 months later, and I thought, I don't know who this person is in the mirror. I don't know who you are. And then I decided again, it's like, this has to stop. And very beautifully, I met a new friend. I met their stepfather and mother, and they were wonderful. I call them my Mallorquin parents. They saved me, basically. I was going out, partying, drinking, etc., etc. I'd made the decision I didn't want to drink, and it was really difficult to carry that on with the environment that I was in. And it got to the point where I actually moved in with them, and I would go to work and I would do, my timeshare, whatever I need to do. And then I would just go back there. And I was really regimented with this because as much as they were gorgeous people around me, they were my addictions as well. They were drinking a lot. So I gave up. I gave up alcohol then. And then there's been various points again after that throughout my life where alcohol came in again. It was very much to numb what was going on. So after Mallorca, it was my 21st birthday. I moved, I was offered two things. One was to come back and sort out my singing career. The other was to work in a makeover studio. And I chose the makeover studio. And I understand why now, because I built up so much trauma around you can't do that. that was my belief. I can't do that. So on my 21st birthday, my family, well, a particular member of my family who loved my voice had arranged for me to go to a recording studio. I was petrified. Absolutely petrified. I had no idea this was happening. And the guy was brilliant. He said to me, right, come with me. I had my family were in the kind of sort of waiting area so they could hear what was going on. And I kind of squeaked when I started singing. And I heard my grandfather go, "Oh dear."
Oh, he meant well.
Yeah. So this chap was wonderful. He took me aside and he said to me, "Do you smoke?" And I said, "I never thought I was a smoker." And I said, "Well, yes, I do at the moment." He said, "Right, have an orange juice, have a cigarette. We're just going to go in there and do it, okay?" And he was brilliant with me. And at the end of it, so about an hour and a half, 2 hours later, after we did the recording, and it was really fun, and I was really enjoying it. And I recorded, it's on a tape cassette. That's how long ago this
Oh,
was. I
yeah.
recorded Gloria Gaynor, "I Will Survive," and it was brilliant fun. And he said to me at the end of it, he said, "I would highly suggest you come back to England from Mallorca and get on with your recording career. Your voice is fabulous." And it wasn't all because again the compliment thing. I was like, "Really? I imagine," and I didn't mean it horribly. So you probably say that to everybody. So no, 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 I don't say that to everybody. So I had this ringing in my ears before I went to the makeover studio. And I had photographs taken. I don't like having my photographs taken. That's another story. So I had my photographs taken, and the chap who was showing the photographs said, "You'd be good at this," because it was sales. It was selling portraiture and the photographs, etc., etc. So I had an interview with the manager the day before I was going back to Mallorca, and I said, "I just need to know, am I going back to Mallorca for good, or am I going to come and work here?" So it was really interesting. At that crossroads, I went down the sales route rather than the creative, beautiful, excuse me, route. So that was really interesting. And because I was then working in this environment that was start at 10 o'clock in the morning and finish sometimes at 10 o'clock at night, I went back into party mode. So at various points in my life, that the alcohol came in again to numb me, so I could ignore actually. Look where you are in London. There's so many places that I could have gone to and recorded and worked with my voice. I was just petrified. I was so scared, not realizing it. And I spoke about this in one of my podcasts as well, because it's quite interesting when we're in a situation and there's something that is so deep in us from yearning from childhood, and we start pushing it down, we can become quite derogatory towards it because it's like a little defense mechanism. So I was almost quite, "Oh yeah, look at them over there thinking they can sing," or and it's really interesting looking back on that now. That was my trauma speaking. It was because the person who said no
Mhm.
to me about any kind of future, so creativity, when I was younger.
Mhm.
We were in London one night and I was in my 20s, mid 20s, 25 or 26, and we'd had a few drinks. And I said, "Why?" I plucked up the courage and like, why did you do that? Why?
Yeah.
Um, and they said to me, "Because I thought you were too sensitive." And that massively hit me. And then they said, "And what have you done about it since?" And that massively hit me as well. They were probably trying to say, "Well, you obviously didn't want to do it anyway because you haven't done anything about it since." And now I realize from that conversation, I'd built up such a resistance to doing it because I was told, "No, you can't do this." There was no way I was going to start venturing into it. So, this is why I love to help highly sensitive people who've got a passion, who've got something inside. It doesn't necessarily have to be theatre or singing. There's so many different ways of creativity. Just we're all creative, just bringing that out in people. And it doesn't have to be shown to the world. I'm getting goosebumps as I say this. It doesn't have to be shown to the world. It can just be, in your own space, just painting. It could be in your own space, writing. It can be in your own space, weaving, sewing, whatever it is, being in the garden. It's just having that beautiful creative connection. And my cat's about to jump up again.
Mhm.
So that's why I failed to explain that, because I had so many masks of pushing down, pushing down, pushing down. And it was always like, oh, well, Aline's the life and soul. Aline shows up and it's not a party unless Aline's here. So I also took that persona on because it was, that was my creativity coming out in another way. It's like, having fun and let's all have a brilliant time. It was 2020. I decided that I was going to have a year with no bit. And what had happened previously to that, it was actually 8 years ago this year, was I was in a shamanic workshop. I dipped my toe in and out the spiritual pool for a long time
Mm.
because when I was younger, I saw things and I felt things and I knew things. I didn't fit in that way. So that was pushed down. And then it started as I was entering into the world of opening up, mind opening drugs, things started happening. And to the point that actually the girl that said to me about going to Mallorca many years ago had me in front of her father, who was a vicar, doing an exorcism. So when I think about these things, and I don't hugely remember it. It's so funny that this girl who, and anyway, it's almost like, you can make it into a bit of a comedy. She was taking a lot of cocaine at the time, and then getting me in front of her vicar father to do an exorcism on me.
On you even.
Anyway, sorry.
On you even.
Yeah, on me.
Mm. Oh, wonderful.
So yeah, so what happens? So just to explain, there's always been a spirit that I've always felt very connected. There's always been a spiritual aspect, and most of my life had been pushed down. So the spiritual and the creative aspect for me are all together. They're all one. The healing arts and the creative arts for me are one and the same. It's sensitivity. That's how I see it.
Absolutely.
And I was I had moved to Spain. Again, I'm not going into all the whys and wherefores. I moved to Spain. I decided I was moving to Spain, and I was going to carry on with a sales role. And this sales role didn't come to fruition for whatever reason. So I started being party girl again because I had a lot of time on my hands. I had enough money to just live and not have to work at in that moment because of all the sales roles that I'd done beforehand. So I was life and soul, party girl there. And I remember somebody saying to me, "It's not the same when you're not out anyway." So um, because there was one night I just didn't want to go out, and they said, "Oh, we missed you. Where were you?" And I said, "It's not the same when you're not here." So then I actually started going a bit more into myself because I just realized that I was going out, being party girl, showing up as party girl, and then being exhausted, and then going to the point where it's like, okay, I need to be party girl again, so I need to start drinking again. And it was drinking again. A friend of mine wanted to do a play, and so I was involved in that. And then I thought, I'm going to start doing this again. This is my moment. So I moved to Barcelona, and that I thought, yes, I'm going to go to Barcelona and do performing arts and la 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 la. As I first got there, I was recovering from a will they, won't they kind of separation. There was somebody who come back into my life, and then just as they were going to help me pack to go to Barcelona, and then that all went by the wayside, thank you, universe.
Mm.
And then, so when I got to Barcelona, I was kind of deeply releasing. And I was very much reclusive for probably about a month, 2 months maybe. And then I also I really felt to join a children's theatre company as well. So I started I was performing for children, which was great fun to start with. It was exhausting, and I didn't realize that I had various chronic illnesses going on. So that was the creative element was pushing through there, and I was enjoying it. I was doing fairy tale story, like Little Red Riding Hood, I think was one, the Gingerbread Man. So I was putting all the hats on, quite literally telling the story for the children, not just with a book, actually being the characters and singing and going to the schools. That was wonderful. Being with the children was wonderful. It was just that fun element. And then I was in a play, and there was an agent who saw me and said, right, join. our agency, and I'd never been to any auditions before. They just presumed I had. I didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea. And I went for this audition, and I was just having fun with a friend of mine who happened to be there, and I got an instant call back. So I was up there, I was number one, and then I was called back. And I didn't know what I had no idea. And so it went very, very wrong, even though I'd prepared. I'd had no kind of advice about don't do this, don't. And the people who were the clients, they laughed at something I wrote. And I wasn't used to I wasn't used to being in this situation at all. And so I looked over at them, and then, obviously you don't look over when you're in an audition, etc., etc. So anyway, so because I thought that had gone so badly, I decided that's it. I'm not doing it anymore. That one thing.
Yeah.
And I went into sales roles again. And I went into real estate, which is what I'd done before, which I hadn't gone into. So it was really interesting. Just that little element, that tiny little traumatic reminder, I went back again. So, and there is a reason I'm sharing all of this, because finally, when I started working for, it was a luxury real estate company, I had been involved with my shamanic teachers. I had been going to a workshop every year. So I would be there, feel amazing, feel really myself, obviously no alcohol, etc., so forth. And then I would go back into the world that I was living, the unauthentic world, and forget it all. And what happened was one of the ladies who had been organizing for them, she just disappeared. Won't go into the whole story. They needed somebody to help them. And it was like, Aline, that's you. You help them. So, okay, well, I'm in Barcelona. I can help them organize. That's fine. So I got in touch and I said, well, maybe I can help you. I'm here. I'm quite good at organizing. So I did. So I organized for them, and we were in the workshop that evening, really beautiful for spring equinox, giving our intentions. And it was just before, it was the year of my 40th birthday. And I said, I wish my intention is to live my most authentic life.
Careful what you
Can
wish
imagine
for.
what happened next.
Careful what you wish for.
Exactly. So that night, I was on steps in the mountains. So we were in a hotel in the mountains in Monsen, poured it down with rain, and I thought it was a wonderful idea to go for a walk. And I slipped on the mountain steps and I fell. And then everything changed. Everything completely changed. I didn't realize that I'd done any damage to myself because I felt okay and there was no bruising. So I didn't go to the hospital for a week. When I did go to the hospital, I was misdiagnosed. And then I didn't know what was going on. And then eventually, when I left Barcelona to go for my 40th birthday, this was in the August, I went to see a very wonderful doctor in Andalusia. She's now a family friend. She was amazing. She diagnosed me with central sensitivity syndrome, because what had happened after my accident was I couldn't walk. I couldn't walk without extreme pain. And I was feeling everything. I was burst open. As I look back on it, I was burst open and I was feeling everything. I went to an osteopath and she was doing it's almost like a tuning fork to measure your level of, of how intense the pain is. And she was saying, this is crazy. I said, I can't feel anything. I was numb. I couldn't feel anything. Even though I could feel everything, I couldn't feel that. And so my body had just kind of gone into this, basically like a chrysalis almost. It was like, okay, you've asked for it. We're getting you there. I tried to go back to work. It didn't work. I was with a client one day. I was green. They said, Aline, you're green. I was sent home, and then that company fired me. I can't talk about it too much. It was wrongful dismissal. That's all I'll say. The same relationship that had happened just as I was moving to Barcelona started happening again. Here comes Cleo, and finished just as quickly as it started again. So I was being aligned in intimate and work relationships to, what was my vibrational level. So obviously I wasn't going out because I couldn't move, so I wasn't drinking alcohol, etc., etc., etc. So then what happened was I just decided to leave Barcelona, and I moved in with family, and that was when my healing began. And it really began properly because I didn't realize exactly what was going on. I didn't realize my sensitivity. I was very trauma ridden with the being fired from the company, the physical body going on, the emotional trauma of the intimate relationship that never happened, all of that going on. And I didn't realize I had absolutely nobody to talk to about this. I was just in probably deep depression, I imagine. And I was diagnosed with central sensitivity syndrome, which is has an umbrella underneath it, which is PTSD, which was me being reclused and stuck in. It's fibromyalgia, so I was feeling so much, but not feeling very much internally. Fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, and there's various other labels, and I don't want to label myself. This is what they labeled me with. And what is this? I don't know what this is. So then it was I mean, people have heard about it now. It was quite new at the time. And the doctor was amazing. She did all these tests on me. And basically, I said, ouch, every time. It was just gently tapping around. And she said, yes, I thought so. And so she said fibromyalgia. And then she said, it's actually something else because my sensitivity to light, my sensitivity to noise, everything was through the roof. My sensitivity to allergies. I'm now vegan. I was vegetarian at the time, and I developed an intolerance to all dairy, which I understand why now is energetic with the animals. So all of this change was going on. And it wasn't until it was 2020 I decided to do a year with no beer because because with fibromyalgia, I was told that white wine actually eases the pain. So I was still drinking cava and all the rest of it, and being in the area in Spain that I was in, still kind of showing up life of the party. Oh yes, Aline will have a glass of wine. She'll always have a glass of wine. Don't need to ask her. We'll just pour it out for her, you know. And then I remember it was 2020, and I said it was 2019. I was going off it. I could feel I was going off it. It just wasn't. I wasn't feeling the same, and I was being in situations where I wasn't really enjoying myself. I was there having a drink because that's what I did, and not really having any sort of meaningful conversations, if you like, just listening to somebody. And again, no judgment, listening to somebody just talk about themselves, which is pretty much what I'm doing at the moment, and talk about the same thing over and over and over and over and over. And it was very draining, very draining. And you couple that with alcohol, and I'm sure many people listening to this or watching this know this, when we have any kind of substance, and alcohol is a substance, it opens up little spots in our aura where the lots can come in. So if there's any negativity around us, it attaches to us. So I was carrying a lot of other people's stuff, not realizing. And so fast forward to 2020, it's like this is it. I'm gonna do, I don't need it. I don't want to drink. And so it all started really changing. Friendships that I had, because I wasn't having a drink, they weren't interested. That's fair enough. My family, who were used to me saying, "Oh, I'm not going to have a drink," and then they'd say, "You'll have a glass of wine, won't you?" They just thought that's what was going to happen. Aline will just have one. And it took them 2 months to stop asking me, which was brilliant. They finally stopped saying, "Do you want to?" Obviously they don't ask me now because I haven't drunk for 4 years, 5 years. Where are we? 2025. So yeah, so it was almost as if alcohol was my persona, to be perfectly honest. It was almost as if alcohol was my persona, and that was my way. It was my coping mechanism. I didn't go to Alcoholics Anonymous. It happened gently and gradually for me. And I had the real support of my spiritual mentors because I was studying with them as well. In 2020, they started doing online studies because they couldn't tour. And then they started doing them each week, and I was doing so much inner work and really, really working on myself. It didn't vibrate with me anymore at all. Alcohol, any kind of substances did not vibrate with me anymore. And so that's kind of that's when I realized it's okay to feel. It's okay to feel so much. It's okay to not have the friends that I had before. I'm making space for authentic people, and I don't mean that horribly. When there's an addiction, or when there's something in our life where we're not being real to ourselves, then to me that's inauthenticity. I was opening space to have really beautiful friends on a deep level. In fact, one of my best friends now, we were introduced by somebody, a mutual friend. She said, "You'll get on so well." But when we were both British, living in Spain, and I remember meeting her, and she and I said, "I'm just going to have because I'm so used to it. I said, I'm just going to have a cup of tea. So I'm just having water. Perfect. She doesn't drink either. So it was almost instant. It was like this, okay, I just want to be around people. And I don't have any judgment if somebody wants to have a glass of wine. I can still, if I want to have a glass of wine, I can, and I can have just one. I choose not to. So that's where I am with it, because it doesn't align with me spiritually or energetically. With other people, they may be able to have a thimbleful or something and be absolutely fine. That's not me. So I realized that the persona that had taken years and years and years and years and years to put up there. Yes, Mumi, I've got my cat on my lap. She's looked up at me. I realized that that persona was false. And so from 2020 until now, I'm still finding things out about myself. You know, we all do. And so from 2020 to now, it's I show up as who I am. If I'm tired, I'm tired. If I don't agree with something, I don't agree with something. If and I got to a point as well, even when I wasn't having alcohol, I was almost going into accelerated people pleasing mode
Yeah.
to kind of bridge that gap, which I don't do now as well. So it's really interesting, all the peaks and the troughs and the, you know, and and finding out, it's like, okay, so yes, I'm here to serve. Yes, I'm here in service. I'm not here to do it to my detriment. And I'm here to do it to uplift and inspire. And how can I uplift and inspire if I'm on the floor and I'm helping everybody around me when actually they're perfectly capable of doing things themselves?
Yeah. If anything, we're hurting
But
them
there we,
by helping
yeah.
too much. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's arrested development, isn't it? You know, and actually, one of the gifts that I'd like to give your audience is the healthy boundary checklist. And on there is just a really simple little, because as empaths, many of us can be people pleasers. It's just a little list to go through the next time somebody says, "Have you got 5 minutes?"
Yeah.
Just to go through, and it gets you to a point of yes or no, whether it feels right for you to help them, and how to work that in with your healthy boundaries.
Yeah.
I mean, I can go through the list if you like. It's all on there. So yes, there we go. That's my story.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so after 2020 and the awakening and this diagnosis, you mentioned going to live with family and starting your healing journey. I would suspect you learned about the nervous system and how to process all of those big emotions that were coming up. What did that look like for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for asking that. So that looked like accepting my own rhythm. That looked like not feeling that I had to, I know I can speak quite quickly sometimes. Um, that looked like not speaking immediately when somebody asked me a question,
Mhm.
because I didn't want there to be a gap and them to think that. And there are certain points in my life where I've just taken my time to feel into a question and then to answer, and somebody said, "Oh, well, if you feel like that about it," which is really interesting. Now people understand that I won't just go, I'm taking my time in replying. So What that looked like was accepting myself. What that looked like was knowing that it's not all Pollyanna, it's not all rainbows and unicorns. What that looked like is nobody is perfect and accepting I'm not perfect, and letting go of people pleasing. And if there was something that I didn't agree with and it felt important to say, then actually voicing that rather than just going, all right, yeah, yeah, okay, yeah, oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
That was huge for me. That was really big. And also, if I was spoken to in a particular way, whereas before, to a certain extent, it's better to let it brush over us in some ways.
Mm.
Whereas before, there was a certain person in my life who would speak to me in a certain way, and they were used to that. And it got to a point where I was like, actually, no, that's not okay. No, that's not okay. And it's doing it in a very gentle way. And that's what's really important. It's not doing it from a place of trauma. It's doing it from a place of considered compassion, because you understand that that person in front of you probably very likely has their own trauma, and that's what's kind of reflecting, or whatever's happening, you're reflecting to them what their trauma is. So it was an interesting journey. And situations still come up, and we're human. It's really important that we check in on ourselves. So what that looks like is a morning routine. What that looks like is inner work now. What that looks like is being really honest with myself. What that looks like is accepting that I have shadows. And what that looks like is that I can show up exactly as I'm feeling. It doesn't have to be all rainbows and unicorns all the time. I can show up if I'm not feeling great. I can show up in that way. I don't have to put the mask on of I'm fine,
Yeah.
because that that is so inauthentic. And as women, and I'm going to go down this road, as women particularly, we're so instilled in us to just, oh, do you know what? Be lovely if you smiled, love.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, oh, well, what's wrong with you if you're not smiling? If you're in a contemplative mode, there's so many generations and generations, and I know I'm here to stop generational trauma. I know that. I know so many of us are. And I know it's not just women, I know it's people. I'm not just saying that. I'm saying from a point of view as a woman, it's recognizing that that's generational, that that's societal, what society kind of instilled into us. And I watched this really interesting little thing on Instagram the other day. There was a chap on a board, and it was two circles. There's a red circle and a blue circle. And he said, right, I know they look the same. Which one is bigger than the other one? And I looked at it and I was like, well, they do look the same. I thought, oh, well, it's probably going to be the one that's the blue one then. So I was doing this in my head. And then he came back and he said, they're both the same. I said, but what I did was I got you to think that one was smaller than the other one. And he said, I'm controlling you. And he said, it was really interesting what he said. He said, so that's how it starts. So it becomes a habit. So you're being led to believe, almost brainwashed, if you like, you're being led to believe that is the truth. And I can do that another few times. So that's habits. Then
Mhm.
that becomes tradition. And I was like, oh,
And you start doubting yourself in the process.
yeah, completely. So, and goosebumps that was an amazing thing that came up.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like society, and perhaps I'm going to mention the patriarchy, the way we've been brought up, the way we've been told this is how you fit in. Why?
Yeah.
Why? It's so other people can feel comfortable.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember hearing the phrase, don't bring other people down, right? That my perception and the way I move through life was going to dictate how other people experience life. And so I had responsibility for how they were feeling. So it's
Yeah.
really interesting
Wow.
to when you talk about being an empath and being highly sensitive and being who everyone else wants you to be. In my experience, and I wonder if you also experience this or if you help clients with this, the recognition of how we are feeling is very difficult, but I can tell you how everyone in the room is feeling very, very quickly. So what was
Million
that like for
percent.
you? And in your healing journey, how long did it take for you to start to implement some of these things before you started to feel better physically?
A long time. because it was so instilled into me. And I still have to check in on myself now.
Mhm.
I'm away at the moment on my own with my beautiful cat, and it's
Mhm.
wonderful. And I have to check in on myself so I don't become a hermit because it is so wonderful.
Yeah. That's
Um, yeah, it took a long time, and for me, it's mindset. It's mindset. It's inner work with meditation and theta healing. Because we have the different waves. It's working with the brain.
mhm.
Because for me personally, I have a
Mhm.
very quick brain, and it can go from here to here to here to here to here to here to here.
Mhm.
And many times it's like, okay, just slow your roll. It's okay. And I do the stop process, which I could take your audience members through if you like as well. It's finding what works for you. So, one size doesn't fit all. So for me, it was mindset massively. That's what I had to work on. And I work on it every day. I have my morning routine every day. I have my hypnosis, my inner hypnosis that I go in, and that's how I feel grounded. It's grounding. We have to feel grounded as empaths. We have, I know, we have to feel grounded because we feel so much. And I had a gorgeous conversation with my spiritual mentors a couple of weeks ago. And one of them, Christos T. Perry, talks about how empaths aren't born, they're created. It's exactly what we're talking about, the trauma aspect. When we're so much younger and we have whatever our gifts are coming through, we quickly learn that for everybody else to feel okay, for us to feel okay, everybody else has to feel okay. So if we're calming everybody else down around us, then we're going to feel okay. And it's recognizing, where that comes through. And it's that whole fitting in. And then our sensitivity goes through the roof,
Mhm.
so we do start feeling everything. So, in answer to your question, a long time. It took a long time, and I still have to work on it. I absolutely have to work on it because I had my human design
Mhm.
chart done, and I can't remember exactly what the kind of little crossroad thing is. There's something in me that I am over. I'm like highly, highly, highly like a sponge. It's like, oh, shocker.
Imagine that.
So yes, yeah, hypervigilant, hyper aware. And so I'm really aware when I go into any kind of situation, even if I just go to a supermarket, I have to get myself prepared beforehand. And
Mhm.
then I have to do a process when I get back. It's management.
Mhm.
We have stress management, we have time management. This is empath management.
Yes.
And yeah, and yeah, this is for that. So it took a long time, and I still work on it. That's my answer.
Yeah. And yet, while high sensitivity or being empath can be driven by trauma, I think sometimes, at least the first time I heard it, I felt like somebody was trying to take something away from me. Like, no, it's a gift, even though I didn't actually enjoy it at the time, and sometimes even resented being so sensitive. And yet, when someone said, "Oh, it's because of your trauma," it was as if they were trying to take something from me that didn't even really like, anyways. Didn't make a lot of sense to me at the time, but it is regardless of where it comes from, right? If that
Yeah.
rubs someone the wrong way, then just drop that for now and allow it to be what it is, and recognize that it can be a gift. Likely this now supports your purpose and your ability to tap into people and receive the messages that they need to hear. And how did this bridge into what you do today and sort of become part of your purpose?
Well, I had already kind of dipped my toe in and out the spiritual pool. I was going to the shamanic workshops every year, and so things were coming in anyway. And I'd had private sessions with my spiritual mentors before, and I was told I'm a natural channel. I was actually told I was a natural healer as well. I remember being in one, and it isn't, oh, I'm a natural healer. It's just, it makes sense.
Yeah.
And we were in, it was actually, it was when I'd moved to Spain at the time, and it was before I organized. We went to I went to a workshop with my teacher, and it was just brilliant fun. It was in Monsen. It was absolutely amazing. It was in a different place. It was actually where where Monsen is, where the Black Madonna is. It was a really gorgeous place, and also very Catholic. So it's quite funny. We were all giggling and telling jokes and being really silly. Um, and it made sense when I was told you're a natural healer, because wherever I am, and this happened when I was younger as well, people stand really close. And they do this in Spain anyway, just really close,
Mm.
because I don't have to say anything. I don't have to do anything. And I'm sure you understand this. People just feel better just being, I mean, here she is. Claire's like, yes, mummy.
Kitty says yes.
Yeah, exactly. She's like, yes, we know this one. So it was so yes, so you asked about, sorry, rein myself, well, I'm not reining myself back in. I'm getting back on where we were. It's really important. I don't rein myself back in. No.
No reading allowed.
So so what happened was I many years ago I studied as a massage therapist, and th that was where the kind of healing aspect came in. And then as I was going out on my own, it was before sort of the holistic therapy became trendy, if you like. This is years ago. A family member saw an advert in a paper and it was sales and said, "Oh, this sounds like you. Why don't you go for that role?" And I did. And that went by the wayside. And I ended up selling Spanish property. So yeah, so it's interesting how I was, obviously, not obviously, you wouldn't know, that was in my 20s to early 30s. So the way it started coming in was I would go on journeys, inner work journeys, and just use my imagination. And I would love, we were in the shamanic workshops, and whenever my mentor was taking us through a shamanic journey, I love it, absolutely love it.
Mhm.
And so that has become, and I remember him saying in one workshop, it's funny because we don't remember everything. We remember what we're supposed to remember.
Mm.
And I remember him calling me a natural healer, and these are in different workshops, an extraordinary visionary. And so I started feeling into, well, what does extraordinary visionary mean? Because I see so much now, and I love going in and using my imagination, and I love taking people on journeys. I love taking people because I receive journeys for people, and I love taking them on their inner journey and helping them to get to that point where they can do it themselves. So that's where that comes in. The sensitivity aspect. Um, I don't know if I've mentioned this. I was told I was a natural channel as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah.
So the natural channeling came in because sometimes when oftentimes you just have an answer to something and you don't know, you just know. This was happening more and more and more. And it was because I was kind of aligning more and more and more. Whereas before it kind of came in with people pleasing, it was people would, shoulder to cry on, and then I'd have the answers for them. It was actually identifying, I was channeling for
Yep.
what the solution was.
Yep.
And then now it's actually, don't just give that away. That's something to be used of service, not to be used for somebody not to do the work themselves.
Yeah. Yes.
So I think she got her paw up. Yeah, she's just put her paw up.
Just helping.
So that's how it is now. So and I've created. It's called. It keeps changing the name. I've created a really beautiful video series, and I'm going through it myself.
Mm.
And it just really helps you get back to yourself, really remember who you are. And it's working with affirmations. There's a gorgeous self-healing journey. It's all guided. And then we work with a little action, and that's 22 days. And I'm going back through that myself. So I create courses as well. And with the podcast, here she is. And with my solo podcast, oftentimes I'll go into journeys, and it just comes in naturally. So that's how it comes through my work. And when I'm with people one to one, I don't know where we're going to go. I have an idea where we're going to go. I'm also very practical. And I do receive practical solutions as well. So it's energetic and practical solutions, and it's meleeing in the two, which is why when I say I'm a coach, I'm a mentor, I'm a channel, I'm a coach. all meleeed in, and I'm not going to apologize. She's hilarious. She's got this new thing where she just puts her paw up to put my arm down. It's like, yes, stop that now, please.
That sounds
Have you
sweet.
seen me going like this?
Yes.
Look, she's doing it again. Uh,
She lets you know what you need.
so yeah, exactly. So in answer to your question, that's kind of how it's come in, and there's more and more and more coming in. And the creativity aspect, I love to write as well. I'm writing something at the moment, which is why I've come away to complete that.
Mhm.
Um, and I'm also creating, whilst I'm away, I'm creating a new course which will actually be a toolkit for empaths with lots of different elements. So not just guided journeys, lots of different elements that work for me that I really hope will help fellow empaths.
Beautiful.
And also, you've heard my very long journey. Mine happened finally at 40. Mine happened finally at 40, that my realization. So it can happen really young. It can happen when we're in our 60s, when our 70s. There's no
Never too late.
right or wrong time. There's just your time. And I feel it's really important for anybody who's listening, if they're feeling, oh, well, I'm only in my 20s, so, I still, I can still go. If it feels right for you to start exploring now, go for it. If you're getting the messages in your 70s, in your 80s, in your 90s, that's your time.
Beautiful. What would be the top three tips that you offer your clients?
In starting in a work or just in life in general?
As far as stepping out of the life they say you should live into your purpose and any healing that might be needed in the interim to be able to do that.
Okay. Brilliant question.
Mm.
So first of all, I would really work out how you feel safe. When we're cave people and it shows up, so if there's a boulder coming towards the cave and it's gonna close us in, we're going to run towards that. So flights, we're going to run towards that and push and hold so that boulder doesn't come towards us.
Mhm.
If there's a saber-toothed tiger coming towards us, we might hide and freeze, run and hide, or we might play dead. And also, and if let's say there's a tribe coming towards us, another caveman tribe, then we're going to fight. And so what happens is in our environment, when any change shows up in this day and age, which is constant because on the internet, everything's constantly changing, environments are constantly changing around us with people walking in and out. When we go, in our cars, there's so many things happening all around us. When we are so used to being a certain way and we built up this persona and these masks, when there's any kind of change, doesn't matter how gentle it is, I would say, remember you're going to have resistance. Remember you're going to start finding any excuse for not doing that. So you're going to have resistance. You're going to fight and say, well, no, I don't really, that's not right for me because of this, and this. You're going to have distractions. You're going to be in a space of, right, okay, so I'm going to start really working on myself. Oh, actually, that person over there needs help. And then you may feel, and I'm not saying this will absolutely happen, these are just examples. You may feel like a crippling fear because you're not recognizing yourself, and you may start withdrawing and hiding. We've spoken about the hermit mode because your limbic brain is going, okay, we need to hide from this. So you might be hiding from the world. You might start hiding from what's really going on and perhaps go into procrastination or perhaps even feel physically frozen. So the main thing is to feel safe. And there's a really beautiful, it's just a really simple technique is of putting your hand on your heart, closing your eyes, taking a deep breath, and just saying, I am safe. I am safe. And by doing this, we're telling our whole system that we've got this, everything's absolutely fine. Because I also talk about as the three F's. I also talk about our inner critic being our inner protector. And actually, all that inner critic is doing is trying to keep us safe. So when we say, I've got this, I'm safe, this is really good for me, what I'm doing and what I'm entering in, it's calming our nervous system. It's going from the sympathetic nervous system to the parasympathetic nervous system, get my right teeth in. So we're feeling safe as we're entering into anything. So my first top tip is before you start doing any inner work or start looking into who am I really, make sure you're feeling safe and grounded in a in an environment that feels safe for you. And also what will very likely happen is, as I mentioned before, friends started falling away from me because I wasn't that person anymore. My second tip, if you like, is be really kind and compassionate with yourself and with other people. Because as you're recognizing that you're not necessarily showing up as who you truly are, there's going to be a process that you're going to start showing up differently. And not everybody is going to feel comfortable with that. There may be many, many people around you that have that, absolutely have your back. There may be also others who there's a little resistance from them because they don't know who you are anymore. So have kindness and compassion. And I would say if people show up in a derogatory way towards you, which can sometimes happen, you know, because we're changing. We don't want to go out for a drink or we don't want to do this. We're not there at the end of the phone, whereas we would normally be there in a heartbeat. We're not at their front door as something's happened. Is have, if it feels right for you, have a conversation with those people and saying, I'm actually taking some time to get to know myself and who I truly am. And oh, it makes me quite upset saying this. And those people who are supposed to stay in your life, they will stay in your life. Those people who are not going to be staying in your life because for whatever reason, they're still where they are, they've still got their lessons to learn, we say goodbye and we say thank you. And it doesn't have to be dramatic. It doesn't have to be traumatic. It can just be goodbye. So that's my second tip there with the kindness, compassion with yourself and with others. And the third one is have fun.
I love it.
So,
Don't take it too
because
seriously.
yeah, completely,
Yeah.
completely. Because I know it's just there a moment, I'm really feeling that is not take ourselves so seriously, is to have fun with it, you know? Like I was talking about before, loving the creativity when I was younger and doing the silly voices and silly dances and doing different accents. As you're as you're starting to remember, because we're remembering who we are, allow yourself to let loose a bit. Put on some music and dance around like a loon and don't judge yourself with it. Put some, one of your favorite songs or get in the car and drive somewhere and sing at the top of your voice. Whatever works for you, though, we're not all the same. I mean, this is where I go back to creativity. Paint something for the sake of painting it, write a poem for the sake of doing it, not for the finished product. It's that feeling that creativity in there and have fun with it. They would be my top. So feel safe, be kind and compassionate with yourself and others, and have fun.
Beautiful. I love that. I love that, especially too, at least for me in my experience, because of my trauma and the fear of doing something wrong and being a good girl and getting it right and the impossible levels of perfectionism that were gifted to me in my programs. I walked through life in a very rigid way, just afraid to do anything wrong or make a wrong move, or that can be the fawn response. There was also a run response. So, just everything was so tense, and then we would try to run away from it because it was too much. So having fun puts us in that parasympathetic state where we can let go. And you might appreciate this. One of my favorite experiences was improv for anxiety, where I wasn't actually trying to be an improv performer, but I was studying at Second City in Chicago, which takes it very seriously. And yet it's not serious at all, right? So the number one thing that the number one rule in improv is yes and, right? So if I stumble, if I fall, if I say the wrong thing, yes and then bow, right? And to approach life in that way. This is all improv. Just don't take it too seriously, have fun and work with what you got. Make it enjoyable. So I love that.
Oh, I love that. That's so gorgeous. Yes, and improv life is improv. That's gorgeous.
Yes.
So gorgeous. And mentioning the fawn as well. The little book that I'm giving as a gift to your audience as well is Making Friends with Your Inner Critic. Talks about the three F's. In my podcast, I talk about the fourth F, which is fawn and people pleasing, as you know, that I like to introduce the first three because I think it was in is it 2013 the fawn response came in, I think it was
Yeah, it has been more
recognized.
recent. Yes.
Yeah, and I mean that is absolutely up there. It's yeah, and I love that you're saying that those final notes, life is improv.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's not it's not a rehearsal. It's just enjoying it and getting on with it, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
gorgeous.
I love that you mentioned theta healing too, because the theta state of the brain is actually primarily derived from the hippocampus, which actually shrinks in size due to trauma. So our limbic area of our system becomes over
Mm.
relied on and engorged with blood, but that redirection of resources actually causes the hippocampus to shrink. And as we know, with theta states of brain waves and healing,
Yeah,
that's where we're reprogramming and becoming that new person and calling down our power and authority. So there is another level of gift that can come through having fun and stepping out of that activation so that we can allow the hippocampus to regain its volume and its strength and
I
heal
love that.
forward.
Thank you for explaining that. Yeah,
Mhm.
that's wonderful.
Yeah, beautiful. So where can people find your gifts? I know you've mentioned your podcast and your website. Where can they find you?
Well, you can find me on, they can find me on alinewithaline.com. I'm there.
Mhm.
I'm also on Instagram, the acceptance coach. And I have started recently, it's called Solution Union 99. And at the moment, I'm posting little tips and clips of my podcast actually on what's it called? TikTok. I don't know what the
Oh,
name was.
yes, yes.
On TikTok. So I've just started that. So they can find me there. Also, I'm on Facebook. I'm more on the others. I am on Facebook because I've kind of kept that. And if anybody wants to get in touch with me, they can get in touch on my website. They can, because I also love to hear as well if there's anything in particular somebody would like me to cover on the podcast as
Mm.
well. So I'm also collaborating with somebody else on their podcast, and I'm part of their podcast community. That's just happened. And I have episodes with a beautiful lady called Stacey Chillemi, another beautiful lady. And we have another 5 episodes together, I believe. We've recorded a couple, and it's so I'm collaborating there. I also have one-to-one sessions. Yes, I think that's everything. And I'm writing at the moment. So yes, people can. I love to hear from people as well. I really do. And I'm a great believer in, obviously you're the vibe mentor. I'm a great believer. We know when the vibrations are right, that's when we align with people. So if anybody feels to contact me, then please listen to that. And I know at the right time, the right people are coming into my life now because I'm working on that, and obviously you are as well. It's yeah, so it's yeah, beautiful. So if anybody feels to contact me, please do. That's all I'm going to say.
Wonderful.
Don't second guess yourself.
We'll make sure that there's lots of links below. I know you have free gifts for people to just get started and get to know you and continue
Mm.
the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So that's what I'm saying. So the podcasts are all out there anyway. They're like little mini workshops that lead on from the other. And then the gift that I would like to offer, so there's a healthy boundary checklist for empaths.
Mm, yes.
Because we are a different breed. So it can be so easy for somebody asks us for help to jump in. So it's like a little flow chart. It's really simple and really effective. And you just look at it and you ask yes and no questions to get you to the point in where are you with helping that person, and it really works.
Very cool.
The other gift I'd like to offer is it's called Making Friends with Your Inner Critic, and it's just a little explanation about the three F's to start with. There's another one. There is another one coming out about the fourth F, and there's a lovely little exercise in there as well, and it just you get yourself into a really safe place and you feel that everything that's happening when you're going into those three F's is actually just a biological reaction from your body. And it's a really beautiful exercise to do, to actually realize that's what it is, because we can put so many different labels on everything. It's just realizing that. And that, I find that really settling. That's a really lovely one to start with as well, actually. So yes, that's what I'm offering your lovely people.
Beautiful. Such a generous gift. So thank you. I'm excited to check it out myself. So thank you
Oh, you're so
so
welcome.
much for your time and your beautiful energy and sharing your lovely message with us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me and listening. And I really hope that my journey, because it has been a journey, has inspired anybody who's listening just to know that it's time.
Yeah. And no matter what you've been through, it's never too late.
Exactly. It's accepting exactly where you've been to get to where you are, and then shadows and all, it's time to start embracing yourself. It's thank you so much. Your energy is gorgeous. Thank you
Oh,
so, so much.
thank you. It's such a gift to have met you. So thank you.
Such a gift of me too.